what industries, what categories, what areas do you think are the ripest for IoT and may indeed yield some of the biggest opportunities in the future?
Security.
So, same, yeah, great. Cybersecurity or?
Well, I mean, agriculture right now, as you absolutely know, I mean, I'll hand you your mic, you could probably talk all day. I mean, most of us don't talk about it, but the connected city, transportation, healthcare, all of that, manufacturing for sure. But, I mean, I'm going to give you the mic because I'm going to let you go for it. You have it.
Yeah, so
Here.
yeah, so there are 4 billion acres of tillable land. So that's plantable land in the world, and it's also one of the largest industries. If you think about it, even doing relatively manual agriculture could benefit greatly from IoT or technologies like this. So we've seen very steady growth in the productivity of farmers. U.S. farmers are very productive. They're very rapid adopters of new technology. So, one of the questions we get all the time, hey, do farmers really use iPads and smartphones, et cetera? They do, and they're the definition of kind of a mobile professional, so they were very quick to adopt it.
And I think what we see a lot with all of this and all the industries, it's just, as we talk about agriculture is so important, it's the remote monitoring side of this. It's the ability to monitor things that you never could before. Putting intelligence onto things that were very unintelligent before, that you don't have to send someone out to go out and eyeball it. And the savings is just astronomical right now. We're in very unprecedented time right now in our history, and we say it's almost like this second revolution. It's not, but it's an evolution of what we can do by putting intelligence on unintelligent machines. We're not adding new machines, we're just putting intelligence onto machines that are being able to do things, and that's what we're really seeing.
So we can view this not only as a source of new revenues and new value, we can also look at this as a way of major cost savings and internal efficiencies that can increase margins within companies.
But there's no question. That's absolutely what we're talking about. And when you think about right now, the greatest growth of all of this is the manufacturing sector right now, because they're the ones who are going to see the next big evolution of cost savings and remote monitoring in the service side of this that they're going to be able to do. When you think about like parking meters right now, that was a very unintelligent kind of thing that we've now been able to put a service on. You're able to actually use your phones and things like that to pay your meters and things like that. But there's so many other kind of things, garbage pickup and things like this. We're all talking city, but it's the way things are done, picking up and knowing that you don't have to go, is that garbage can full of garbage? They have sensors on it that says it's now full, go pick it up. It's the whole idea of HVAC systems, that knowing it's going to break down and service it, it's proactive versus reactive. And those kind of things are costing and saving unmeasurable amounts of money.
Right, and just as an input, right? So sometimes what happens is we look to the past on what's been done, and we're not focused on some traditional ways of how things are done today, right? And how do we monetize that opportunity, right? Because the first person to monetize that opportunity becomes a market leader. Let me give you an example. 1993, Windows 3.1 came out, right? It was like, folders were like folders, right? Why did they design a manila folder like a folder which is virtually there in Windows? Because they want to make sure that you're comfortable working with something that you already work with, right? So they're just improving the use case, the usability of an existing workflow. So this is something that we're working on, just cutting edge, right? Airlines, how many of you guys have been in a turbulent flight? Pretty often, right? So it costs the airline about $100 million a year to schedule servicing on who gets priority based on which aircraft had more turbulence, right? So now all the aircraft are wired up with Wi-Fi. So what Zapton is doing now is, without using the expensive, avionics that's already there on the plane, we are able to source turbulence data from a simple iPhone, which is wired through the Zapton network, that monitors the turbulence of the aircraft, right? From 5,000 to 10,000 aircraft flying live, right? Crowdsource that, and by the time they land, they're scheduled automatically on who gets preference to get serviced first. It saves the airline about $100 million a year. So this is the value.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, that's the value. So end of the day, technology doesn't matter if you're not able to, either save money or create value. So you have to think about traditionally done things that we take for granted, and how do you automate that? That is the next thing that you want to invest in. You don't want to invest in things that have already been done. You want to look at things that you are an expert in, that you think that you could automate with IoT. And that's going to be your baby.
That's a great perspective. Great perspective. Brennan, what were you going to comment?
I was, may sound a little controversial, I was going to argue against smart cities as a priority area for investment.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, because one, the long and difficult sales cycle for all sorts of reasons, but also cities are frankly just for the most part, other lines of business that other companies have, right? So depending on what city, we are actually using the technologies that other industries use, and they will move first, and we will just adopt. So with very few exceptions like public safety, et cetera, which, right, there aren't a lot of private police forces, we will adopt the technology. Smart buildings are a good example, right? Municipal buildings tend to be relatively simple, and while we are very interested in the efficiencies, et cetera, that smart buildings technologies can bring us, we will source those after very large, development companies and real estate management companies adopt those first, because their bottom line is going to be much more aggressively managed than ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great
Well,
perspective.
and it makes sense, because if you think about it, look at what Tesla's done.
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla, it's the tech companies that are really testing it all out. They're the ones that are showing over the air, and they're really taking it. And it makes sense because they've taken all the challenge, all the risk, right? So then a city can say, there's so much government, no offense, bureaucracy that we have, that it takes a lot of time to be able to show is this going to work. So right now,
We take no risks, so it's very
exactly,
hard.
and it makes sense that the tech companies are the ones that are going to say, we're going to be able to leapfrog in the adoption and do all these things. But that's what you're seeing. Once they see it works, then a city says, we're going to do it, we're going to move forward. And we see this happening over and over again. But we're seeing the adoption then really happen. And we're seeing the excitement of technology adoption for this very reason. Like, look at the automotive industry. It's a perfect example. Do you see now what's happening? We're seeing changes in automotive. We're seeing Ford working with Toyota. You would have never have seen that. Maybe because we had a Kanban kind of bond, kind of a cooperation for years on a standard, okay? But never saying we're going to work together on how we're going to do a connectivity in the car. But they had to, because Tesla's saying, well, you know what, we're going to kill you. We're going to just beat you in the marketplace. And that's exactly what was happening. So they said, well, we all have to do something, because if we don't start, the tech companies are just going to crush us. The Teslas and the Googles and Apple are going to come into this, and they're going to come with, connected cars, and we're going to have driverless cars, and that's what's going to happen in the marketplace. So I think you're exactly right.